and that's because she is shedding her winter coat. So all of that blonde hair, all those tufts you see, will shed all out, and in the fall time, so in a few weeks, she'll be a really dark brown color. Now Honeybear here, she has what we call a donut, which is one of our enrichment toys. It's basically hard plastic with 3 holes drilled into it, and inside we have placed some peanuts out of the shell and some dried cranberries, which is a nice treat for our bears. And the reason we do these enrichment programs is not only to feed our bears, but also so you folks can get a really good look at our bears and how they can manipulate objects to get the food out that they need. Honeybear has also been known to give off some pretty interesting vocalizations as well. So for those of you on the deck, you might get to hear some pretty cool bear talk. Now Honeybear, she was born in captivity on a game farm in Wisconsin. She then was purchased by a private party where she lived for the first 10 or so years of her life. She then was transferred to the North American Bear Center in 2007, which is the year the center opened. Now this Bear Center was established by Dr. Lynn Rogers, who has been studying black bear ecology, behavior for over 45 years in the Ely Tower area. And so the whole purpose of the center is to educate the public and dispel any myths and misconceptions there are out there of black bears, because there are very many. Now Honeybear, she has never had cubs here, unfortunately, but we do have 2 males here, and black bears live in a female-dominated society, so in the wild, females decide who they mate with. And she is intact, but she has just flat-out rejected our males every year. She's very introverted, she likes her own space, and so usually during mating season, which is typically the month of June, she basically ignores our 2 males we have here. They try and buddy up to her, but they don't get very far. The 2 male black bears we do have here at the Bear Center, one of them is Ted Bear, who is kind of famous at the Bear Center. He is our 17-year-old bear. He is actually not out in our 2.5-acre large enclosure, which you guys are looking at right now. He is currently in his separate pen area, and each of our 4 bears do have a separate pen about the size of a 2-car garage with a denning area as well inside. Now Ted Bear is currently in his pen area right now. A vet came a few days ago, and so he's still recovering from the vet visit. He was out earlier today for about an hour or so, walking around. Oh, it looks like I can see our other female across the pond. She must have come from her deadfall. And for those of you on the deck, you can see just beyond the pond, there's a tree that's fallen over. And Holly, the little one you see out back there, she loves to go up in that deadfall. She sleeps back there, she'll play back there, and if she's scared, she'll even run back there for refuge. Now I'll finish talking about Ted later. I'll talk a little bit about Holly, the little black bear you see kind of scurrying around the tree line. Now Holly is our youngest bear here. She is about 20 months old, so she's not quite 2 years old yet. She's considered a yearling. She is about 125 pounds, and she is the newest addition we have here at the Bear Center. And she knows my voice very well. When it projects over the microphones, usually she's like, oh, I think it means feeding time. All right, I'm going to come down and get some food. And so that's our little Holly. You may notice she's keeping quite a close eye on Honeybear. And that's because, like I said, black bears live in a female-dominated society. And so Honeybear here, she's the matriarch. She's Queen Bee, Queen Bear, you could say. And so she likes to put Honey in her place, Honey likes to put Holly in her place, and usually does so by chasing her away. She'll huff at her sometimes, give off some pretty funny, interesting vocalizations. So as you can see, both the females are keeping an eye on each other, and Holly's ears are back in a submissive type of manner. she's trying to scamper over to get her enrichment toy. And Honey is like, don't even think about coming over here. That's our little Holly bear. Now Holly, unlike Honey, was actually born in the wild. She comes all the way from Arkansas. So she was born to a wild mother there and actually orphaned in a wildfire. So she was orphaned as a very small cub. She was then found by a person who tried to raise her for a few months. Eventually, the Arkansas Fish and Game Service was informed, and this person did not have the proper license or permits to have a bear. So she was taken away, brought to a rehab center in Tennessee where she was deemed unfit for the wild, so she was unreleasable. Now, for a bear who is not even a year old, who is deemed unreleasable for the wild, they really don't have very many options. They need to find a forever home or they're euthanized. And so the Bear Center gladly received Holly Bear December 27th of 2013, right around Christmas time, which is partially where she gets her name Holly. Now, she looks like a very happy, healthy bear now, but when we got her in December, she was losing fur, she was terrified of people, she had infections, she had skin conditions, she was in very rough shape. She was actually quarantined into her pen for the first few months she was here, and that was so we could treat all of those skin conditions, infections, and to try and socialize her. Now you may ask, well, how do you socialize a little bear who is terrified of people? Well, for the first 17 months of a black bear's life, they are with their mother, and so that means nursing. And so when we received Holly, she was 11 months old, so she should have been nursing in the wild. And that meant bottle feeding for us. And so we had 2 staff members who bottle fed Holly twice a day. And this provided not only a means for us to deliver food and antibiotics, but also it provided a bonding opportunity. And so little Holly here bonded extremely well with 2 staff members here at the Bear Center, who we call Mom 1 and Mom 2 because she really sees those 2 women as her mothers. And so through that, she developed confidence and trust, and eventually she was able to be released into this 2.5 acres, and now she's happy as a clam. She's very playful, she swims in the pond all the time, she's very intrigued by moving water, she'll actually fight with the falls and try and bite them, and things like that. So she's come a very long way, but we think Holly has made a very happy life here at the Bear Center. Now, one of the bears that Holly loves to play with is Lucky. And Lucky, he is somewhere out in this 2.5 acres, and we allow our bears to roam basically wherever they want to go. And so Lucky has a few spots he likes to go. To the far right back, there's a really nice raspberry patch that I've caught him snoozing in a few times. So he could be back there chowing down some raspberries. There's also a nice little rocky area back to the left where he likes to play sometimes. And so I think we have a staff member looking for Lucky right now. You also may have noticed that our staff members were calling our bears by names. And each of our bears, they know their names, but they also recognize the voices calling them. And so, when I got here mid-May, I would call, let's say, Lucky, and he would be like, who is that? What is that voice? Why are you calling me? I'm not going to go to you. But after a few weeks, he got used to my role here, and I would give him food, and so then he started to associate me calling him with getting food, and so he would come. But there was definitely an adjustment period. They also know our smells as well, and so all of you on the deck, our bears can smell you, but they're used to having people on this deck. Well, let's say, for some reason, one of you somehow jumped the fence and got into the enclosure. That would freak the bear out because that's very out of place. And things that are out of place for them really scare black bears. We had an 11 o'clock enrichment program earlier today, and Honey, our 18-year-old cinnamon face female, she was startled because two birds were fighting in a tree right by her. And those noises were very out of place for her, and it actually scared her, and she kind of ran away. So black bears are very timid animals, they're very frightful animals. I also, one time during one of these programs, someone sneezed on the deck, it's allergy season, whatever, and it totally freaked out Lucky, our 7-year-old male. He's like, what was that sound? I've never heard that before. And that's just testament to how frightful and timid these animals are. Anyway, I'll keep talking about Lucky. He should be making an appearance sometime soon. He is our 7-year-old. He's about 360 pounds. He's a beautiful black bear. He has shed all of his winter coat, so he's nice and sleek. Really shiny coat. Now, Lucky, like Holly, was born in the wild in the great state of Wisconsin, born to a wild mother there, and was actually taken out of his den by a person. So all black bears are born in the month of January, and so sometime in that spring when he was a new cub, someone happened upon a bear den, saw this tiny little bear, and was like, oh, this would make a good pet. I could probably raise that in my house. Took Lucky away, raised him for a few months. And black bears, for the first year or so of their lives, they grow very fast, they're very good climbers, and they're food-driven, so they can make a mess, especially in someone's house. And so I'm sure little Lucky got too much to handle, and so he was found actually wandering around in Wisconsin in someone's yard. He had no idea what was going on. He didn't even realize he was a black bear. He was very clueless. And so the DNR eventually found Lucky wandering around in Wisconsin, brought him to a rehab center. He was deemed unreleasable. And this was all the way back in 2007, which is the year we opened, like I mentioned. And so July of that year, when Lucky was 7 months old, we received him. And that's kind of where he gets his name. We were very lucky to receive this little bear, who was 15 pounds the year we opened. And he was very lucky to have a home to go to. And so that's where Lucky Bear gets his name, Lucky. Now, Lucky, he is a very playful bear. He's very curious. We do have 2 electric fences enclosing this area, and sometimes we need maintenance done or whatever, locks checked, things like that. And we'll have a maintenance crew out on the the other side of the fence, and Lucky always supervises. He likes to know what's going on. If any of the staff members walk around the 2.5 acres, he's most likely to find you and follow you the entire way, just because he likes to know what's going on. Now, he was cruising out here earlier looking for food, so he may be foraging back in the woods, but typically on days like today when it's sunny, black bears, being black in color, they can overheat pretty fast, and so Lucky and Holly really do like to utilize this pond. And we'll try and get him down here for you folks to see too. But Lucky and Holly, they like to play together a lot. Those two have a very positive relationship. It's kind of like a brother-sister relationship. Holly, she's almost a 2-year-old, always wants to play, very hyper, a lot of energy. We'll bat at Lucky, we'll try and fight him a little bit. And Lucky just tolerates her. He's very gentle. He's extremely patient with this little bear. Even when he doesn't want to play back, he allows her to, like I said, bite him in the ear or kind of chase him a little bit. And so it's been really fun to watch those two grow together. I'll finish talking about Ted Bear, our 4th ambassador bear we have here at the Bear Center. Like I mentioned, he's 17. He's our 2nd oldest bear. He's our largest bear. He's about 560 pounds, so he's a big guy. And like I said, he's currently in his separate pen right now, taking a little rest, a little break. We do have a monitor downstairs. If you go down the stairs from the from the observation deck, take a right. There's a TV screen with a camera on his den, actually, so you can see what he's up to. We do have 3 other cameras here, which are live cameras and are accessible via our website as well. And so if you go home and you're wondering what the bears are up to, just head to our website at www.bear.org. And there's a camera on Ted's den, there's one on Holly's den, and then 2 on this pond area. But those are our 4 bears. We have Ted, Honey, Lucky, and Holly. Both Ted and Honey were born in captivity. Like I mentioned with Honey before, they are actually both purchased by the same private party and lived there for the first 10 or so years of their lives. They then were both transferred to the Bear Center in 2007. So we have 2 bears that were born in captivity, 2 that were born in the wild. And they do have 2.5 acres to roam around here. We let them go wherever they want, but they do all have their preferred areas. Like I said, Lucky likes the far right back there. Holly actually likes kind of to the left over here. She really likes this white pine, which is the tallest tree on the left that you guys can see. It's half dead, really tall. And white pines are actually very important trees for black bears. Black bears live in the woods and they're very good climbers. And white pines are their favorite tree species. And that's because they have very strong bark, so it's easy for bears to climb up and down. Even those newborn cubs or very young cubs, when they come out of the den from hibernation and they're still kind of awkward, still trying to learn how to climb, white pines are very easy for them to climb. They also have very evenly spaced out branches for playing or for napping and sleeping. Like Honeybear, our little yearling, she goes up that white pine all the time. She goes up like 30-40 feet. She'll go out on a limb and just totally conk out, totally fall asleep for an hour or two. They're also great refuge trees. Like I mentioned, the bear is scared. What it will do will run away and run up a tree. And so when Holly, when she was new here and she was very unsure of herself, kind of not used to being out here, if she was scared, she would run up that tree. And actually, 9 out of 10 mother black bears, when they have cubs, will go straight to a white pine when they come out of the den, come out of hibernation. They'll go straight for a white pine. They'll usually make a day bed, which is basically just like brush and twigs and things at the base of the pine. The mother bear will even sometimes send up her cubs into the tree while she goes to forage for food for hours at a time. So they're excellent nursery trees as well. Black bears are very well adapted for climbing. Both Holly and Lucky climb up trees all the time, and earlier today, Lucky was actually climbing up the cedar tree right in front that has a little platform on it. And he's 360 some pounds, and so that's just testament to how strong black bears are and how good they are at climbing. I'll briefly talk about their diet. That's another question I get all the time is, why aren't there fish stocked in the pond? Or why aren't they getting any red meat during these enrichment times? And that's because black bears are omnivores, so they do sometimes eat meat, but they're not strictly carnivores. They're not strictly vegetarians either, although a lot of their diet is vegetation, so grasses, leaf parts. They love white clover, it's another favorite. They also eat a lot of berries. June berries are a preferred food for black bears. They also love hazelnuts. And hazelnuts have a very high fat content and they crop later in the summer. And so like right now, black bears are hitting into the time when they're really starting to pack on the pounds for hibernation. And so they need a lot of fat. And a really good source of that fat are hazelnuts. They are 60% fat by content. Otherwise, only about 10% of a black bear's diet is protein, which is a pretty shocking fact. I know I was surprised when I heard that stat. 10% of their diet's protein. A lot of that protein doesn't come from meat, it comes from bugs. So immature ants and bees are their favorites. And that's why sometimes you may see a black bear going after a beehive. But it's not to get the honey, it's to get those immature bees because they are very high in protein. Now, they are opportunistic, so what does that mean? It means they're a little bit lazy. If you look at a black bear's body, they're really not very well adapted for being predators. They have awkward, blocky bodies. They can run pretty fast, but for not very long. And so they don't really like to work for food or work to get meat. And so let's say there's some like roadkill or some remains from a wolf kill, something like that. Black bears will eat that red meat. Also, if they come across a fawn in the spring that hasn't stood up yet, they will eat that fawn too to get that protein. I've also heard stories of some Boy Scouts from California who were camping and they saw a black bear go after a fish stringer. So, I can't say they don't eat meat or they don't eat fish because they are opportunistic, they are omnivores. And so here at the Bear Center, we feed our bears a lot of fruits and vegetables. They get a lot of romaine lettuce, a lot of carrots, apples, pears, plums, peaches. They like watermelon, they like red grapes, they love avocados, it's their favorite. They also love peanuts in the shell and out of the shell, unsalted of course, if you prefer the unsalted. They also love Brazil nuts as well. We also do give them a variety of dried fruits. They like dried apricots and dried cranberries the best. And we feed them 5 times a day. We also do allow our bears to hibernate here. It's another question I get very regularly. They all hibernate a little bit differently. So, Honeybear here, our cinnamon phase beauty, she hibernates the least amount of time of all of our bears. She went into den last winter about December 1st, which is pretty late. And so we suspect that she has some southern genes. And what I mean by that are bears in the southern areas where there's more food availability for longer of the year, they don't have to hibernate as long as, say, a bear from Ely, Minnesota, where there's much greater food stress. Now, Lucky Bear, our 7-year-old male, he hibernates much longer. He goes into den mid-October to late October. So that's a pretty big difference. And like I mentioned before, each of our bears do have a separate pen area about the size of a 2-car garage. And inside that area is a denning area that they can choose to den in. There's also the rock den, which is to the right of the pond. And Honeybear was actually in the window den, and she actually hibernated in that den last winter, so they can choose wherever they want to go. That was a very brief overview of our bears here. If you folks have any questions, I'll be walking around afterwards to answer any of those. I would like to thank you all for visiting the Bear Center today on this beautiful day in Ely. I would also like to thank our worldwide listeners and volunteers for making these broadcasts possible. Thank you folks very much wherever you may be. And with that, I hope you enjoy your time in Ely and at the North American Bear Center. Thank you all very much.